Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad Zafri. So I'm from Group 3. We Group 3 will present about the factor determining the profitability of AirAsia Malaysia and AirAsia Indonesia. So I will talk about the introduction of this topic. So according to the Iowa State University, profitability can be defined as income earned through company operation less cost. So if the number is positive, you are profitable. So if the amount is preceded by a minus sign, you are not. So the purpose of this study is to look at the element that influence the AirAsia Malaysia and the AirAsia Indonesia profitability. So the method that we will be used in this research is to use the panel data analysis, also known as the longitudinal data. That is an information that comprises of observation on a various cross-section across time. So I will talk about the background of our study. So AirAsia is a commons operation in 1996 that after being created in 1993. So in 2001, the Tune Talk Sendirian Berhad of the previous Tony Fernandez company purchased the airline from the Abihacom. So AirAsia is a Malaysian low-cost carrier and Asia leading North Frill airline. So there are many subsidiaries of AirAsia which include Thai AirAsia, Indo AirAsia, Vietjet AirAsia, and AirAsia Red Tick, AirAsia Act, Tune Hotel, Tune Money. On the other hand, are AirAsia associate company. So AirAsia has had a significant impact on the current COVID-19 scenario, and it will have a greater impact on the AirAsia profitability. So I will continue about the problem statement of our research. So the CGSR CIMB research has a forecast that AirAsia current cash flow of low-cost carrier will only be supported for the less than 5 months. So because of this COVID, also urged by AirAsia Group to allow credit as an option to refund their flight ticket to its passenger whose flight has been cancelled because of the MCO in Malaysia. So because of this, the AirAsia sale declined from RM 2.31 billion to RM 118.96 million by 95% quarter on quarter. So compared to the previous quarter, which is on second quarter finance for the 2019, AirAsia post revenue of RM 2.92 billion with a net profit of RM 17.34 million. So as for that, I will continue about the research objective. So our research objective is to investigate the relationship between the sales growth and the profitability of AirAsia Malaysia and Indonesia, and also to investigate the relationship between the leverage and the profitability, the liquidity and the profitability of AirAsia Malaysia and Indonesia for the past 15 years. So the research question for our topic is that is there any relationship between the sales growth and profitability, between the leverage and the profitability, between the liquidity and the profitability of AirAsia Malaysia and Indonesia from the 2006 and 2000 until 2020.
My name is Muhammad Afiq Fikri bin Muhammad Nazri. So today I will present chapter 2 about the literature review. Firstly is sales growth. Growth has traditionally been used as a measure of company performance since it is true to be a forerunner of long-term competitive advantage and profitability, according to the Fitzsimon, Stephen and Douglas 2005. Next, analysis is of major relevance in good economic times, but it is critical in bad economic times, as several recent studies seems to show. As example, the study from the Federico and Capellares in 2015 and study from Yu and Kim 2015. Besides that, the global financial crisis of 2008 had an impact on business growth and performance. The profit is likely to have a positive impact on growth according to the Ferrando, Machicha and Mura in 2017. Lastly, if the business climate is not conducive to investment, the link between the profit and growth become shaky, according to the Lee 2014. Secondly is leverage. Debt used to generate revenue that can increase revenue and profit over time. Unproductive or excessive debt can reduce the profitability, according to Neil Katkmuller. Next, according to Giroud 2005, found a negative association between a firm amount of leverage and profitability. Besides that, the direct relationship between the degree of risk and rate of return could also be used to determine the relationship between leverage ratio and firm profitability according to the Fletcher 2000. Thirdly is liquidity. The current ratio, often known as the CR, is the proportion of current asset to current liability according to Mamdouh and Halim in 2014. Besides that, a high current ratio can give new investor good data, which is the larger the current ratio, the greater the income fluctuation, according to Kuswadi in 2005. Lastly is from Kimberly Almeida in 2021. When an agency, organization, or a person seems to have enough asset to pay their financial commitment, they are said to have a high liquidity. So for the hypothesis, we can say that for hypothesis, there is a significant relationship between financial ratio variable and profitability. And for null hypothesis, there is no significant relationship between financial ratio variable and profitability.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad Aman Afid bin Zulkifli and I'll be going through the chapter 3, that is the research methodology. Now, moving on to the first part, that is the introduction. For what we use for this research are secondary data and information from different sources. For example, we use annual reports and data from Thomson Reuters data stream. Now, the next part will be the purpose of the study. The purpose of the study is to examine the vulnerability of companies' financial, and in this report we specifically chose Asia. It is also to identify the causes that affects the profits in terms of sales growth, leverage, and liquidity. Now, moving on is the types of investigation. There are two types. There are casual and correlational research. Casual, it is changes in independent that can lead to changes in dependent variable. And correlational, by its simplest meaning, we just want to see the relationships between the variables, between the dependent and the independent, such as, for example, we look at oatmeal and also the weight. So the weight can be the dependent and the oatmeal can be the independent variable, where we can say that increased consumption of oatmeal can also increase the weight of a person. So that will be see a positive correlation. Now, for the study setting, it is carried out in a non-contrived environment, which means it is a natural setting. This is due to monitor the cause and effect interaction. Now, moving on to the next slide, we'll be covering a lot of things, starting from the unit of analysis. This can be referred to the types of organizations. In this research, we use the company or industry as the unit. For the time horizon, right, this research gathered data over a 15-year period, starting from the year 2006 until the year 2020. Now, note that the observations used in this research is panel data, not time series. For the data collection, we used secondary data from a data stream known as Thomson Reuters data stream. This data stream was provided by UiTM for its students for free access. Now, from what we can gather the data from the Thomson Reuters is that we can gather the detailed information, specifically for the aviation business. Now, moving on to the variables, there are two types. There are dependent variable and also independent variable. Dependent variable, from its name, we can simplify that it is a variable that depends on other variables. And in this case, we use return on assets for the dependent variable. For the independent variable, it's the vice versa. For dependent, it does not depend on any variables or on its effects. From here, we use sales growth, debt ratio, and current ratio. Now, in this slide, we'll be focusing more on the research itself, starting with the research framework. Now, what it did was it developed a better insight and understanding of what we are trying to provide in the study, such as we wanted to provide the main objectives in order to calculate the significant relationships between the independent variables and dependent variable. Now, for the task consideration for data analysis, we use the panel data. This is to determine the relationship between the variables. What is the effect of sales growth, leverage, and liquidity? And also in this research, we use descriptive analysis. From what it can be explained is that it gives us short summaries about the measures and samples of data which can help to understand and describe the features of specific data set. We also conducted correlation analysis. This is to identify the strength of the relationship between the two factors and is expressed mathematically with a ratio coefficient. Now, in this research, we also conducted regression analysis. Now, in this analysis, for what we want to identify was the strength and connection between one dependent variable and a group of dependent variable. In this research, we want to find out the return of assets, that is the dependent variable, and the relationship, the connection, the strength between the independent variables. In this case, we used the debt ratio and current ratio and also sales growth. Now, regression analysis includes panel least square. This is a technique to identify the concurrent effects of many independent factors on a dependent variable when regressing a panel of data. And F-test is also used in the regression analysis. This is to find or to compute the total significance or value of the dependent and independent variables. Following to that, we also have the t-test. It is a statistical test that compares the average values of two data sets to see if they are from the same groups. Now, there's also coefficient of determination, also known as R squared. It is to determine the strength of the linear interaction between two variables, and is heavily used by researchers when doing pattern analysis.
For the findings from descriptive analysis, it shows that the mean is negative 0.0438 of common value. As the number is less than 5%, the ROA shows it has a normal mean. The scattering or standard deviation of the ROA from its mean is 0.174. Meanwhile, for median, it denotes that the middle a revealed data value descriptive analysis and ROA obtained is 0.05 data frequencies. The skewness of the ROA data is negative 2.236, indicating that the probability distribution is negative in value, and it shows the probability the skewed to the left. The 8.6167 kurtosis shows that the distribution has heavier tails than a normal distribution as the value is more than 3. To sum up, based on the explanatory variables with the same unit, the highest mean and median of this study are sales growth, which is the value are 1168.4167 and 7.33. The mean and the smallest median are current ratio, and the values are 0.977 and 0.795. In contrast, the maximum data value is 4515.77 and the minimum data value is 76.23. Next is correlation analysis. In correlation analysis, only current ratio or liquidity ratio shows a significant relationship with ROA or profitability, while sales growth and debt ratio have no significant relationship with ROA, since the probability value of sales growth and debt ratio is greater than 5% and it have a weak relationship with ROA. Move on to the next analysis, which is regression analysis. The F statistic value is at 4.8799 and it is fit, while the p-value is 0.08. Because the value has a significance level of less than 5%, the null hypothesis must be rejected. Besides that, the value of r squared is 0.3138. For sales growth and debt ratio, it shows that a significance level of both independent variables are more than 5%. It indicates that the null hypothesis should be retained. As a result, changes in sales growth have a minor impact on return on assets. Meanwhile, for current ratio, the probability value, on the other hand, is 0.0017, which is less than the 5% significance limit. As a result, the null hypothesis must be rejected, and changes in the current ratio will have a significant effect on ROE.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Aiman Sani bin Abdul Nasir, and today I would like to continue with the chapter 5, which is the conclusion, recommendation and the finding. So I would like to go with the finding research objective, which is the sales growth, leverage and liquidity. I would like to go with the sales growth. For the sales growth, it shows that the sales growth does not have a significant relationship with the profitability. It shows that the H1 are rejected while the H4 are accepted. The results are supported by the Amir Hassan Al-Yahri 2014 and Ana Maria Gomez in 2017. The research are supported by the Yolanda 2018, which is it states that even though theoretical sales growth can impact ROA, sometimes it can be uncertain in the crisis of the period. For the leverage does not have a significant relationship with the profitability and need to reject the H2. These results are supported by the research by Raab in 2012, Singapore Walker and Wahid 2011, which is it states that has no effect on profitability either linearly or non-linearly in the French service sector. Last but not least, for the liquidity has a significant relationship with the profitability. It shows that H4 are rejected while the H3 are accepted. These results are supported by Morel in 2012, which is he states that the current ratio is typically anticipated to the profitability of airline industry. For conclusion of this research, I can conclude that the results show that all among explanatory variables which were regressed on the profitability of the firm of AirAsia in the sample, only the current ratio has a significant impact on the profitability of the firm. Sales growth and debt ratio are negatively affect on the firm profitability. These results are interesting for both manager and investor. For the manager, they can know what that should focus more to increase their effectiveness so that they can earn high profitability on the firm. For the investor, they can make an analysis whether the company is worth to invest or not. Last but not least, I would like to continue with the recommendation. I suggest that to adding more variables, which is it suggests that more research can be done on this issue by including other variables, as there is a 63.98% that has not been explained. As a result, more research is needed using other independent variables, which is the self-financing ratio and the financial leverage ratio. By doing this, it can increase the number of terms in a multiple regression. This statement is supported by Grant 2019, which is state that it provides the model a new term to fit the data as well the new coefficient to change the draft a better match. Next, for the study, I suggest that to study on the other countries. More intensive future research will help to attain better results, and we will able to see the AirAsia from other countries. For example, compare AirAsia in Malaysia and Indonesia to see which main determine affect the AirAsia profitability in two different countries with different economic framework. This statement is supported by Machini in 2004, which is state that key features that allow for a theoretical value different across system of civilization identify that more information that can be gathered. That's only for our group. Thank you.